thank you guys very much for being a part of this. This is the first of a new series I'm hoping to bring out about once a year, give or take, called A New View. Something that Barry, you're familiar with, and Helena, I've talked with you about in the Next Rung before, is that I try to help our playwrights as best as I can, but also I repeatedly emphasize I do not have all the answers. Right. I always try to make sure that you guys get multiple voices in your experience so you can come up with the foundational skills and the opinions that you decide is right for your play, right? So I've decided to have a workshop that would highlight somebody that I trust and provide a workshop for Next Rung alums. And you guys are the first ones that get to interact in this way after we'll be posting this online for the broader writing community to be able to enjoy as they see fit. Who better to have for the first person here than where's this person's name? Right there, Kali Meister, right there on the little fake background behind me. I want to tell you guys about my experience at Callie. I'm going to ask Callie to introduce herself in whatever professional way she wants to, but I have some personal and fanboy ways I want to introduce her as first. It's important to me because I don't know that I'm here today without Callie. I just don't believe it. Right. I'm going to start off with that. Back in 2008, I had a that is recording. Yes. Okay. Just making sure. Okay. Back in 2008, I had a 10-minute playwriting workshop with Kali Meister. And I believe you were being supervised by Bill Larson at the time. Do I remember that right?
It was part of my teaching practicum for graduate school with Goddard College, actually.
Okay. But Bill was in some of the classes, I believe. Was that? I thought he was in there, but just
He
like sitting in.
I do think he set in occasionally because I think he was really interested in what I was doing, but it wasn't technically affiliated
Okay.
with UTK outside of being at UTK, but it was actually my graduate school teaching practicum for Goddard College.
Thank you so much for clarifying.
Okay, that's
So,
fine.
yeah, we had like four 3-hour classes. I think we had basically coming up with a 10-minute play at the same by the end of it. And not only was that a great experience for me, that was also what I think was an important experience for Knoxville's. I'm going to name the Tennessee Stage Company here. We had two playwrights in that class that ended up having premieres with the Tennessee Stage Company. In 2012, Craig Smith had a play, The Good Son, that had premiered from the Tennessee Stage Company's new play festival. And then also the next year was my play, Online Fighting, which went from a 10-minute play to a 2-act play to a play that went to New York to a play that went to high schools where I got this T-shirt. Callie
Oh,
a part of it
nice.
there.
Look at that. That's amazing.
And during this time, not only was Callie my first playwriting teacher and a mentor in that sort of way for the 10-minute play, also I was over, I believe, at your home doing the first reading of Online Fighting. You were the first Sheila Jenkins that I had with the Tennessee Stage Company's table readings with that. And I mean, just meant invaluable amounts in that sort of way. So thank you so much for all of that. That's not all I'm going to brag on you for, Callie.
Okay.
I'm not done. Can you help me workshop for plays? I can think of three right now. There's a cocaine comedy,
Okay,
which I probably
comedy.
shouldn't say
Yeah.
out loud anymore, but I'd still like to see it produced one day, maybe with a different title. We'll see.
Yeah.
Also, Afraid of the Storm and Hope in Mississippi, which is now the second act of Two Bad Days, which both Helena and Barry have read before. Barry in a workshop
Hmm.
and Helena with a performance with the Tennessee Stage Company. And so for a table reading. Also, Callie has in the past shared poetry for the Chance Show, which was the time that I produced a fundraiser with the Chance Residential Center, an all girls residential.
Forgotten about that. Oh, wow.
Oh, I did too until I was doing research on my life and your
Oh,
life and us together.
bless your heart. Oh,
That's right. That's right. We've also acted twice together before. One time on your one person show. I don't know how I acted in your one person show. It's one person, I thought, but we were managed, called Exposed.
yeah.
Uh, and then also we acted together in Flaming Guns of the Purple Sage. That was the
Mm.
last show that I did while still living in New York, my first time before going to New York on that. And if I could change that picture real quick, yes, right there. That's a very bloody show. A very
Oh,
bloody show there.
that was so much fun.
I just want to be really clear. Where's my
Ooh.
hand? Where's my hand? Not my handprint.
Not
but
not
it's
not not Harrison's handprint though. Yeah, that was mine actually, frighteningly enough.
um, and also Callie's been a friend of the program for a long time. Been supporting, I believe, two different workshops for two different plays in the past without a map from 2021, and then also last year's play, Alas Ajax, where you not only workshopped, you drove in a pretty long way to come play as Agatha. So very much appreciate you there.
Yeah.
And here's the last thing I'm really going to mention. I'm bragging on Callie repeatedly here, but all of that is nice and appreciate it. But I also want to respect that Callie believed in me on day one in a way that I thought was really unique as a mentor. I'm not going to repeat what the email said, but she sent an incredibly kind email the first day that we met, kind enough where like I've started to realize there are some people in my life I call once in a decade women who just believe in me from day one. And Callie, you're one of those once in a decade women. I very much appreciate you for that. Not only did you believe in me at that time before you had any reason to, also Callie had believed in me back whenever Pandora's Dream Productions was around. And
Yes.
I had my 10-minute play online fighting going on. You also had a play going on that day, and yours crushed it. I was young and thought I was hot stuff for a moment, and then yours took it down. Okay. You made things happen with it. Um, and
Wow, yeah. I
and
forgot about
that's
that.
and that same day, you also said you could take that play to New York, and I did 2 years later. I moved to New York 2 years later, and then got it done two times while I was there. So your faith has mattered for me on this a lot. And so it's my honor to introduce Callie, the first person to teach me here for you guys. I don't want to assume that anything she says is what all of you must follow, but I sure hope that you're able to find something that matters for you during this time. And, it's like Kate Buckley at UT used to talk about with me. Sometimes you got to read a book to find a sentence. And I feel like Kelly has many sentences and you just got to decide what's right for you. But Kelly, I'm so happy for you to be here. And I'd like to give the floor for you at this stage.
Thank you. Wow. Wow. Okay. Thank you again. So I have to process this for a moment.
I
Um,
could have warned you. I didn't. Sorry about
oh
that.
wow. Yeah, I'm gonna be really mushy today now for the rest of the day. But okay, so first, right, one thing I can tell you about myself, the things I offer as I have worked, I have a undergraduate degree in psychology with a minor in theater. And then my graduate degree is in creative writing from Goddard College, which is wonderful if you ever do any research on Goddard College, but unfortunate because Goddard College does not exist anymore. It's a low residency program, and I highly recommend low residency programs if you're looking for something, but definitely do a lot of research on them. They are not for everyone, but I really enjoyed mine. I spent 32 days with people in graduate school that I feel like I know them better than I know people I've known for hundreds of years, essentially. It was a very immersive experience. And my focus was creative writing with an emphasis on playwriting and specific to Southern Gothic playwriting. And um, and my thesis was a Southern Gothic Tennessee Williams type play. Um, which was a departure because before that I was very much into absurdist plays and things that were a little more funky and out there. Um, like, I don't know if it's that event with Harrison, but there was an online TV show that used to be in Knoxville called like 11 o'clock rocks, and it was
Oh, I
Neil
loved that
deGrasse.
show.
Yes, it was, and I think they're online. That show was great, but I was invited to perform one of my absurdist plays with Vanya Smirkovsky, if you guys remember him.
Yeah.
And it was called Absurd Noir, and it was an absurd noir. And I'm going to go ahead and ruin one of the exercises tonight. And if we don't do it tonight, it's one I would like you to do. Absurd noir came from an exercise where, remember me asking you guys everything you hate about
Mhm.
plays? One of the things I would like you to do, if we don't do it tonight, I'd like you to write a short scene that involves every single thing you hate about plays. And that's how Absurd Noir happened. I said I don't like noir. At the time I didn't. I like it now. I didn't like violence for the sake of violence. I didn't like characters who came in with no purpose just to deliver a little bit of information. And I didn't like meet cutes. I wasn't really into meet cutes at the time, and it was all of that. And it was absurd and it was ridiculous. Oh God, I don't like Deus Ex Machina. I didn't at the time. I literally had a character named Deus who came in and tries to fix everything in this noir where they keep slapping the shit out of each other and then they stab him for no damn reason and he's dying. And oh, that was another thing. Characters who just won't die. They keep coming back and they keep coming back. And every time you thought he was dead, he'd pop back. And he said some of the weirdest shit, but it was the weirdest thing. And somewhere there is a video of Vanya Smirkovsky and I. But I highly recommend that because um I who I studied under, my first playwriting professor was Bill Larson. And if you guys had the opportunity to, boy, this is going to make me mushy tonight, between Bill and Vanya and the wonderful introduction. Bill was a wonderful, interesting playwriting professor who his major function in playwriting was torque it up. And so that's one of the things I would recommend if you're wanting, like, first things first, torque your writing up. And in fact, I highly recommend where you take a scene, and I would do this, and I don't know if this was a Bill exercise or not. I did this and showed it to Bill, and Bill fell in love with it, where I took a character and I was writing something, and he said, push it to the absolute limit. So I rewrote it, and I actually had a character reach into a fish tank and throw fish at the other character because I thought, what is the most insane thing to like completely up the stakes of this narrative and just make it crazy? Rise your stakes as you're doing your revision. That's one thing I would highly advise. And I hope this won't be too ADDD. DDDDD. Let's go ahead. I want to look at questions. And I'm going to go ahead and go to that because I was thinking, well, no, even before that. So I'm going to go back. I would like you guys to introduce yourselves and tell me a little about you. And one of the things I definitely want you guys to express to me is what are your writing goals? Like what is it you're hoping to achieve? And it doesn't necessarily have to be playwriting. Like if you have any writing goal, let me know what that is. What's fun, since there's two of you, I can just do a Russian roulette sort of thing and see who pops up. But either one of you, feel free to answer that.
Because I
Well,
see Barry's mic on. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll go ahead.
Okay.
Playwriting goals. So these are some that I wrote out from in response to your prompts. I would like to write at least one new full length play a year going forward. I think I'm well into that retroactively. In the last 2 years, I've written two full lengths. Actually, I've written three.
Wow.
I'd like to do that, and I've started a new one, Harrison. I don't think I've told you that. Just in the past week,
Woo!
started a new full length.
You keeping secrets,
Um,
Barry?
do what?
No. That's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. I would, and then in the same thing, in the same vein, I'd like to write. I don't know, 4 to 6, 10 minutes a
Okay.
year, just to keep my mind fresh and keep the creative tank flowing with new things in and out. Things need to come in and out. They don't need to stew there for too long.
Okay.
Um, I would like to, a goal that I have is I would like to learn more about the one act style, which is in between, obviously between those two. I have not really written one that is maybe 60 minutes at the most, 45 probably, 30 to 45 probably would be more optimum.
Yeah.
And I need to discover what the structure of that sort of length play is because I've noticed recently in several of the festivals that they've requested that. It's like I ain't got nothing, so there's
Yeah.
nothing there. Um, let's see. I'm looking at my list. Yeah, so the my biggest goal is to get staged. A long time ago when blogs were the big thing,
Hmm.
before social media, and everybody all of a sudden had a blog. I became part of a community here in Knoxville called the Rocky Top Brigade, and that was a sort of a coalition of a bunch of Knox area based bloggers. And we'd actually get together every once in a while and have dinner, that sort of thing. And I was remember speaking to one of them at one point about how often do you write? Why do you write? Why do it's an online diary kind of thing. And he told me he wrote for himself. He did not care if anybody ever read it. He just needed that outlet to get his ideas out on page and out of his brain. And I thought about that, and I realized that that's not really the reason that I write. It wasn't the reason I wrote my blog. It's not the reason that I write plays. I think I wouldn't feel like um, I had all these ideas and there was nowhere for them to go, but I really feel like I need to see my plays staged. And that is my end goal. And if I don't have a play end up being staged somewhere, I feel like that I have missed a step somewhere along the way. And I'll realize that I'm early in the process and early in my playwriting journey, I guess. I've got the famous spreadsheet that I've talked about before with Harrison that I have of every festival that I've submitted to over the past year and a half or so, and I have about 75 rejection entries, and I still have about 20 to 30 pending. And then I have up another page that has accepted, and there's two
Mhm.
entries in that so far. So I want to see that start to fill up because my main goal is not to make myself happy or contented or satisfied or provoke thoughts. I want to help other people have those things. I
Okay.
want to make myself available and have other people enjoy a night at theater, a night where they can laugh or where they can cry or where they can be scared or whatever. I mean, so those are kind of what my goals would be right now.
Okay. That well, the first thing I'm curious, have you submitted to the Barter Theater Appalachian Playwriting Festival?
I
Okay.
have, yeah, and I don't know if you're familiar with my Snallygaster play. I can't remember if you came
I haven't read it, but I've seen where it's online and I saw where it was on the website for the Tennessee Stage Company
right.
things, and I'm
So
very curious about it actually.
sure. So, just in a really quick nutshell, I wrote that play as a one act. Actually, I mean, that was really my first one, as part of an anthology production for a company in Chicago.
Mhm.
And so, a year and a half or so ago, I submitted that one act version to Appalachia, the Barter Theater for their Appalachia, and it was not accepted. I'm hoping to give it a year or so and let it sit for a while and perhaps resubmit the full length version if they'll allow me, to sort of resubmit it. But yes, I have heard of that and have gone through that process
Let
once.
let me do you a solid, hopefully. Let me research and see who is the artistic director there now and who is their resident playwright. I have had a show in that festival.
Okay.
And here's the thing, and this was my experience. I believe I only had a show in that festival because the woman who won the festival the year before I had a show in that festival was my writing professor at Goddard.
Sounds
And
good to me.
so I think I was a little bit grandfathered into that. I mean,
Okay.
I still it was a good play. It was not, and I will tell you with Barter, I was kind of shocked my play made it into the Appalachian Playwriting Festival, unless it's changed a lot. It's very hallmarky. It's very like it's very family friendly. Like they're not looking for things that are super outside, like they're not looking to do Martin McDonough. They're looking to do the plays that made it the year I made it. There was one called Elvis Blossom, and it was about a woman who believed that she was the illegitimate daughter of Elvis Presley, even though she would have been born after he died.
Mhm.
And then there was one that was essentially a female version of Tom Sawyer. And then there was this sweet little play about these old guys who they go to a diner and they have this waitress that they kind of have this rapport with, and then the play ends with, and they're all like dealing with death. And they're like, okay, so we're at our final act. And they have this
Hmm.
girl who's this young, spiky energy. And of course, it ends, she dies. And so those are the types, all very family friendly, but I will say that is what their usual thing is. I have seen them take like, okay, so that was not what I turned in. I turned in a very family dramatic thing about Alzheimer's that was very Tennessee Williams meets Tracy Letts. It had a lot of profanity. It had a 15-year-old talking about blowjobs. It had some stuff in it that was very interesting and not normally what they do. I say that because I I don't let that discourage you if that's not what you're submitting. Submit what you're going to submit, because the one thing I will say about barter, if it's the same people, and I need to go look that up, they are very open to the point where when the audience was talking about the play that I had done, there were a lot of people who, including the panel. There was a guy who was a dramaturg, and because he had a mother who died of Alzheimer's, he thought he knew everything about Alzheimer's, and he just tore my Alzheimer's stuff apart. And the creative director and the resident playwright tore him apart and said, "Listen, you guys can say a lot about this play, but here's the thing, you're involved. Every single one of you are involved. And so if you have something that will involve people, and I can say if you're here right now, because I have seen I've seen the level of work that Next Rung does. So this tells me even if I haven't read what you guys have written, I suspect you've written really good stuff. I suspect that, or you wouldn't be here. And in fact, that's for me why this is a little daunting, because it's like I'm looking at you guys, it's like you guys are the future. You really are the future of this. And so, but that's one of the places I highly suggest if you do submit there, like I said, Barry, let me know and I will shoot them an email if it's the same people.
Okay.
Say, hey, or you can even put in your submission, say, hey, Kali Meister, she had her, I think it was 2010. She was a finalist for that festival and she suggested I send this to you,
Okay. Great.
because that's literally what I did with Deborah. I was like, Deborah Brevoort was the finalist last year and blah, 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 blah. And she suggested I submit this. So it doesn't hurt to do that. And to that, I hope this doesn't feel very ADD, because as I'm thinking of things and one of the things I want to express, going back to the question, somebody sent a question about, and you just said, how do you get produced? How do you get produced? It is a lot of work. it's a lot of work. It's very, and I don't discourage it, but you have to understand it is a lot of work and it's a lot of luck. Like my professor, one of my professors at Goddard is a lovely playwright named Deborah Brevoort. And if you have a chance to read, she wrote a beautiful play called The Women of Lockerbie.
Hmm.
And it's a Greek tragedy about the whole issue with the Lockerbie women collecting all the stuff that fell from that flight and getting it back to the families. Um, she was a fledgling playwright trying desperately to get her stuff out there in the world and get her stuff produced. She took a train from North Bergen to somewhere in Vermont. She sat down and she overheard the dude next to her talking, and he happened to be the dude who wrote the musical for Annie. And she just turned to him and said, "Hey, you did Annie?" And she didn't have the heart to say, "Oh, I hate that show, but I'm just going to talk to you," "Oh, I love your work, blah blah blah." And she did that, and she said, "I'm a playwright," and he said, "Do you have anything?" And she went, "I sure the hell do."
Mm.
Now, here's the thing I want to express upon you as you're going out in the world. If you are traveling anywhere, I don't know what the technology is now. She happened to have a jump drive. Like she had a zip drive. So she was able to plug into his computer and download this play that she had written for him to
Hmm.
read. You never know who you're going to meet at places. And getting out there in the world, it part of it is a level of manifestation. And I know that sounds hokey, especially if you see what I do when I'm not doing this. Um, there is a level of you just stepping into your power and saying, I am a playwright. I am a playwright. Whenever you meet people at places, I'm a playwright. I'm a playwright. And what will happen is they will be drawn to you, other playwrights or people who can put you in that power. The other, always have something with you that you've written, always in some way, whether it's in a bag, it's like a short scene. It's like you never know who you're going to run into. I was published on a website because I was having dinner with a friend whose neighbor had a website connected with a theater in Florida. And she was like, I said, "Oh, I'm a playwright." "Oh, well, my relative runs this theater." "Okay, well, give me something you've written and I'll send it to her." "Okay. Can I send it to you through my phone?" "Sure." "Okay." Sent her my thesis, and my one act play. And she sent it, and then they didn't take that, but they were like, do you have something short, like a 10-minute play?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. I'll send you that." And so it wound up being published online. Another note, um, I would highly, when I was in graduate school, the thing we were taught is try very hard not to publish unless you are published through Dramatist or Samuel French. Because when you are out in the world as a fledgling new playwright, if you're published in some goofy anthology, if you want that produced, it makes it more complicated for them to pay you. And it makes you, and it's not that you won't be seen as serious. That's not it, because there is a prestige to being published. But at this point, if somebody wants to take that play in that medium and produce it, if it's not something where they have to contact somebody for rights, you're not going to get paid for that. So
Hmm.
some high school somewhere could find a copy of that 10-minute play I did online and just decide they want to do it. And that's fine. I mean, it does get me out there, but I guess the advice would be if you are considering publication, be very specific about that. Ooh, I'm reverbing. Yeah, be really specific. If know that if you're publishing this piece, if you're publishing a short play, or you're pretty much letting go of it.
Hmm.
You're letting go of the power you have on it. Um, because playwrights do actually have a lot of power. And once you start submitting, that's where you determine your power. And then a lot of people really like virgin plays, um, that are not produced. It's a little harder after a production to get another production. That even is more work. To get that first production, it's not easy, but it's easier than getting the second.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen any festivals or anything that say that they want something that's been done before. It's
Yeah,
always something that has never been produced
it's a virgin
outside of a
show.
stage. Yeah.
Yeah, they really want that, getting that second show. And at that point, that is almost where you need to find either an agent or a manager or somebody who can kind of intervene and get that going. And then also, again, that's the networking. I mean, one of the things I'm very proud of Harrison and other playwrights I know who have gone to other places, that has opened him up to a world of resource that he just didn't have in Knoxville. And while Knoxville is a great resource, it also opened him up. I've noticed it's like there are people in Chattanooga that I know that know Harrison, and I'm like, yeah, I know Harrison, and they're like, how do you know Harrison? I'm like, how do you know Harrison? There is a level of getting out and around. Also, I don't know if you guys, let me find this website. I found a couple of websites like playsubmissionhelper.com.
Hmm.
And then also, Bear, you were talking about submitting. Are you on Doatrope?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, Doatrope is very helpful in organizing submission, and they do have playwriting submissions on there. And if they don't, you can add them. It is a monthly fee. I think I pay like $4 a month for it. But when you go in, one, it has a listing of all these places that take submissions, and that includes plays, poetry, whatever, and then you put it into Doatrope and then you submit it through Doatrope. So you hear back through Doatrope if
Mhm.
you are accepted. And then you have like your own little almost social media page where it's like things submitted, things declined. So you know exactly it makes almost like an Excel sort of thing for you to help you. And especially like you've got two full lengths now and you're wanting to do a full length a year. I would highly recommend something like that just because I mean, an example of Harrison talking about the stuff tonight, I was like, oh yeah, I did that. Oh yeah, I wrote that. I couldn't tell you the things that I've written, and that scares me now because I was like, oh God, I should be submitting that. To Chattanooga has a 10-minute play festival. I haven't submitted any of my 10-minute plays to them. I should be doing that. But a lot of it is just the organization of having something accountable for you. And that definitely helps. So I would recommend Doatrope. And I know all of y'all are with the Dramatist Guild, and I know they have a section in their page where they list places you can submit. And then if you really want to blow it out of the water, I also recommend AWP. I don't know if any of you guys are members of AWP.
Mhm.
It's the Association of Writing Professionals. And it is you pay yearly. It is a very nice site. It has lists of grants, it has lists of residencies, it has lists of
That's cool.
playwriting submissions. Like you can, I, the amount of submissions on that site are ridiculous. It has everything from like you can submit a play to the Ukraine, for a play festival in the Ukraine. It's so I would recommend it. To me, it's worth it. I've had several short plays produced and awarded because I've submitted through AWP. So I would definitely recommend that if it's something that you're really, especially if you're wanting, again, when I was talking about the manifestation, if you go out and say you're a professional playwright, then you should be a member of the Association of Writing Professionals. I mean that's it's part of the putting yourself out there in a professional way. Okay, I want to go back to the questions.
While you're going back to the questions, Kelly, I just want to point out that the websites that you've been naming, I believe I have found the ones
Thank you.
that I
Yeah.
was less than familiar with. Duotrope or Duotrope. Would that be correct, Kelly?
Yeah, Dotrope.
Right. I
That's
got that in the chat. And then also for that AWP, I saw Association of Writers and Writing Programs. Would that be it?
yeah, that I think that's a part of it.
Okay.
If that's not it, it'll take you to the profession. And I think there are two different ones because there's one for college students,
Mhm.
and then there's one once you graduate for college. And but they're the same program essentially. It's just it's cheaper if you say you're a student.
Right on. Sounds good. Feel welcome to go back to the questions, and just want to give a friendly reminder we've not had an introduction for Helena. So
Oh
just let
yes, let's have an introduction for Helena. Sorry,
Please,
and
I'm
I have the
anxious.
worst ADD in the world.
I've
So
got your back.
and I want to hear about Helena since she loved my dog.
No.
So yes, tell me about yourself, Helena.
Um, so I'm a new playwright. I have never written a play before. I have not completed any writing project I have ever started. I would like to do so. That's one of my goals. I would like to complete a play. Um, and as of right now, I don't have a whole lot of other goals. I want to play with it more. I want to expand more. I want to grow more. I find myself just in day-to-day life clinging to structure desperately until my knuckles go white. And I'd like to not have to rely on that as much. I'm sure Harrison can talk about the number of meetings we've had where I've been like, okay, but I need to make it more grounded, and like I'm putting the structure in here because it's gonna help me. It's like I need the structure. I need like almost unnecessarily so, I'm sure. Um, so I'd like to stray away from that and be okay doing so.
Um, I'm going to recommend something for you, and I was going to recommend it to everybody anyway. I wish I had had this book when I was in graduate school. It is called The 90-Day Play.
Mm,
I love this book so much so that I bought the 90-day novel. And I'm doing exercises from both of them. The reason I would suggest something for you like the 90-day play is because it gets you out of your concepts and forces you to do something you might not necessarily think to do. And it really it I would say I love this book because it's almost like holding a creative gun to your head.
mm.
And some days there are certain days you don't want to do something. And it's like, nope, this is day 5. Guess what you're doing today? You're doing this. And that doesn't mean you can't skip around. It doesn't mean, but it does, there is a level of accountability with this book that I really like. And the way it processes each assignment, having written a full-length play, it feels relatable. It feels like doable. As you're doing these exercises and you're going around, part of the joy of this book is going, okay, I can do this. I can do this. Oh, I'm on day 5 and I have, 85 more days to go. I can still do this. It helps kind of keep you from burning out and from becoming overwhelmed. And I love that I have like, okay, in this, so we have one person who's written 2 plays, wanting to write a play a year, somebody who's never written a play before. So my question for you too, Helena, is why playwriting? What was it about playwriting that just smacked you in the face?
Well, my theatrical background is primarily acting. Like I've been acting like as a local Knoxvillian actor for a couple of years now, and I've been doing a bunch of stuff, mostly with TSC. And I think because I've been doing so much with TSC, I've been doing a lot of Shakespeare work. So I was looking at the language and I was thinking, huh, it is telling a story both by just telling you what's going on and by using the actual structure and like verse and prose. And like there's a lot of different things going on. And I just thought that concept was really neat. And I wanted to like take a stab at it, kind of. Not in that style,
Yeah.
obviously. But yeah.
It just, you were looking at it going, I want to try that. I
Yeah.
want to share that. That's a good way to really, and you're ahead of the game. I was shocked because my start too was I was an actor. And I applied for a playwriting graduate program because, and literally my first sentence is, I'm sick of not seeing stories for fat old women. Yes, I'm sick of not hearing certain voices be heard. And I feel like when you come from that acting background, you are already stepping into having an advantage above other people who are just writing plays because they want to write plays. Those people, they don't understand what it's like to be on a stage. They don't understand what it's like to spit these words out of their mouths, and do so while they're doing other. And I can always tell when I've read a play by somebody who has never acted because it's like, ooh, how do they think? Oh my, how do they think that's going to happen? And I'm a big fan of pushing boundaries on stage. I mean, I have a play where a bird flies out of a chimney. And it's just got and they got to beat it with an andiron. It's hysterical. But having that experience of knowing what it's like to have to present this is going to benefit you incredibly. So that being said, the biggest advice I can give you is trust yourself because
Dang
you
it.
know what you're doing already. You know, like you, as you're writing it, and you are going to have, pardon my French, the most sexual experiences writing, because as you're writing it as the actor, you're like, oh, I'm gonna have her. Oh, oh, yeah, that's gonna be so amazing. Oh my God. Let yourself have that, and that's the difference between, I think, acting and writing. Writing is so solitary. It can be very solitary, and that can make you kind of depressed, and it will make you a little crazy at points. And I think playwrights are fun because if you've got that acting experience, the minute that insanity kicks in, you start to begin to present it on an outward level, and so you're like, let yourself do that. To the point too, there is nothing wrong. I cannot tell you the many times I have sat in front of a computer crying so hard that I can't breathe. And on top, that being said too, and it's weird advice, but oddly, I'm glad I'm saying this because I don't think these are things that writers are told by other writers who have been doing it for a little bit, is that you have to give yourself grace and you have to give yourself the approval of failure. You have to, I don't even know if that's approval. You have to be able to fail without fear. Um, because again, when I spoke to the intuition of acting, you're going to have some of the funniest moments happen since you have the acting experience. And I know Barry, I've worked with Barry before, actually. A long time ago, Barry was the musical director for Into the Woods, a production of Into
Yes, and
the Woods.
Callie was the giant.
I was the giant, yes, the voice of the giant, and then Granny, which
Oh, that's right.
yeah, if you guys
You
ever
were
want
both
to
of
hear
those.
some funny stories, that was the most hysterical production of Into the Woods you could ever have seen. But so I know Barry has that experience too. Um, it it's you're gonna be intuitive. You'll have moments where somebody's reading something you've written, and this will be the weirdest damn thing because you have the acting experience, and they'll go, "Oh, when you did that thing and you made that choice to write that," and you're going, "What? I didn't make that choice." And in your head, you're saying that, and you're going, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then the person's going, "Oh, that was a good choice." And you're like, "Yes, I meant that.
Mhm.
I meant that."
On it.
That's part of the trusting yourself too, because you know what you're doing. Your body knows what it's doing because your body has done it. And your body's been on a stage and it knows what those words look like as your body's participating in the words. And that is a gift. That is something that is going to benefit you as a playwright, to the point at some point when you guys are further along. One of the things I highly recommend, and I have taught this, performance for playwrights, because there are a lot of playwrights out there who have no performance experience. And they're out there trying to think that certain plots and things look really good, or narrative looks really good. And it doesn't. It doesn't look good. It looks a little chaotic. So, that being said, and then the other thing you're already doing, when I started graduate school, I thought I had read a lot of theater. I really thought I had read a lot of theater. Um, my first semester, I think I read over 75 plays that I'd never read before, all over the place. The more plays of diversity that you can read, the better. Um, the ask your friends about certain plays. It's go to the library, check out, and then also go look at what's being produced on Broadway right now and try to find those and read those. Try to go see as much theater as you can. I mean, I feel like oddly, I look at Harrison and I'm proud of him because he's doing all the things that you do if you want to be produced. He's going out and he's putting himself out there. He's connecting with other people. I mean, I laugh, like I had somebody I went to graduate school with, I am me, and go, how do you know Harrison Young again? And I'm like, you live in frickin' New York. How do you know Harrison? And her name's Donna. And she is with Dramatist. It is literally just putting yourself out there too that is so important. And to a certain extent, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of luck. It literally, there are people who will bang their head at this. And if you've acted, you know that too. I mean, because a lot of people, when they act, they want to be famous. And they bang their head and bang their head and bang their head and bang their head. It is very similar. And here is the thing that sucks about writing that's different than acting is if you audition for something, you know pretty quickly if you have a role, it could be a year before you know if your play has been accepted. And then some of these places will like, oh, you can't submit anywhere else if you submit here. I will say my advice, if you see a theater that says you can't submit your piece anywhere else and they're telling you it's going to be 3 to 4 months before you will find out if they're going to choose to even read it, no ma'am. That's a big thank you, but no thanks. And that would be my advice with that. Let me look at questions again. Come back questions, because there's one in particular I really wanted to look at. Let's see, writing syntax and story. We're gonna go to 2 to 3 person scenes that don't feel claustrophobic. That was one of the things I really wanted to hit on because writing plays that get produced, we kind of went into that. We'll go into that a little bit more. Improve structure of plot, generate ideas, business wise. Um, business wise, y'all already have an advantage there too. The most helpful thing is to know actors because I've never met a stupid actor. I've met some reckless and silly ones, but I've never met a stupid actor. Um, when you've written something at any stage, and don't be afraid if it's just 10 pages, if it's just 3 pages, but you're stuck. And what you can do is say, okay, I've got 4 pages here. I have these 3 characters. Can you guys come over? We'll order a pizza, we'll get some beers, and then write out a list of questions. And maybe even like, okay, this is where I'm hoping to go. These are who these people are. And then read the little 3 to 4 minute, page thing and ask your friends like, okay, how would you get here from here? Do you believe this? Like make sure when you're doing your readings that you have questions you just go into it with. And again, you will be shocked at the things that they will bring up that you might not even see. And those actually are the most helpful. And the more you can get your play read, in like just like Harrison talked about, I can't tell you, he was not, I can't tell you the amount of people I had in my home at the time that came over and read plays. And I would make sushi or
Hmm.
we'd cook pizza or, I would get snacks and we'd all sit around and we just, sit on the floor around the table and we talk about that. Finding somebody who is a generous host is, if you can't do it, because sometimes I know when you're young and you're starting off, you can't have 10 people in your apartment or house, or you've got a roommate or you've got dogs. Really network in your theater community with people if you can't host who can host. Also, I highly recommend networking outside of the theater community. And I know Barry has an advantage because he's written blogs and you had that group you were talking about. That's good too, because sometimes you want the opinion of people who aren't theater people. And that's part of the joy. Like you just want to make sure you've got a good story. Is this a good story? So it's also good to invite people who teach math, people who work with you, people, if you're, during the day you're working at, a doctor's office, find somebody who works in HR and see if they want to come listen to your play or even read it. Um, you will learn so much from that. And in fact, that's good to keep it from, because sometimes as you're going through, if you have too many of the same cooks in the kitchen as you're doing these readings, it's not going to grow. It's going to get really stagnant. And so you need to make sure that you keep bringing new chefs into this, and you can still, it's kind of cool to have a mix again, because you do want those people who have seen the transitions, but you want people to kind of throw, and this is where the discernment is a good way of putting it, the intuition. You will have some people look at you and tell you the most absolute insane bullshit that you should do with your play. They will tell you something that as they're telling you, you're gonna go, uh-huh. And that's discernment. That is literally a moment of, okay, I hear you. I really do hear you. But at a certain point, you are making a creative choice that completely changes the work that I've done already. And that's the hardest part of making sure you're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater there. And you will, God love you, especially if you work with other theater people. You have one person who are like, well, wouldn't this be good though if they were on the planet Mars? No, 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 no. And then they'll tell you also how they would write it. Well, then that's when you look at them and say, hey, maybe you should write this. This is a good idea there. So let me look at questions again. The one I really wanted to hit, and I know this was JP's question, which kind of makes me laugh. So I'm glad that I know he asked the thing about how to keep two to three person scenes from feeling claustrophobic. And
I believe that
honestly,
was
I knew
Jeanette.
that would happen.
Yeah, I believe
Hey,
that was Jeanette instead of JP. I think.
huh?
I believe that was Jeanette Brown instead of JP on
Oh,
that one.
was it?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I didn't list names on it, but I think that was a Jeanette question on it. But JP could have.
Okay.
I'd have to double check.
That to me is actually one of the most key questions of these questions, because to focus on that answers a lot of the other questions.
Hmm.
Because and that's why I actually sent you all of that character stuff, because what will fix your play? If you are stuck, if you're at a point where you don't know how to fix a situation, you don't know where to go with plot or context, the reason you don't know where to go is because you don't know enough about your characters yet. And the more you can sit down, I mean, there is a point where I can't remember what they said in community, where you diminish the results, but it's almost difficult to do that. Um, And one of the things when I first started teaching, my favorite thing to talk about character development was August Wilson says you don't know anything about your character, and you can tell so much by a character by what car they drive. Um, it it is that sort of focus. Like you want to, when you are stuck, and I have seen this for myself. I am currently working on a play, thanks to Harrison, that I was not going to work on. I was like, oh, I don't know. And he was like, hey, this is an interesting idea. You should do this. Okay, so I went out and bought the 90-day playwriting book and I've been writing on it. Um, when you're stuck, take your characters and begin to define them more. Begin like those questions that I sent. In fact, um, you guys have projects you're working on right now, correct? Where'd you go? Are you there?
I'm here. I can hear you.
Okay. If you have projects you're working on now, what I want you to do is think about some characters or a character specifically that you have in the piece you're writing. And I want you to go ahead and take those handouts that I sent, um, and begin to go through and answer some of those questions. Like biggest strength and their weaknesses, what they're most proud of, what they're not proud of. And I would focus on one of the things that help you get out of situations. And when you create this character and you know what they're into and the opposite of that and the complications of that, that is what will build your relationships with the other characters. So the more you know about one character and you develop that other character, it will intuitively create that relationship. And if you have an idea of where you want to go, it's going to make that character, like a lot of writers talk about when they write, and I've had this happen. I thought I knew what I was going to do. I really thought I knew what I was going to do, but the more I started writing this character began to do what the character wanted to do. And it was like, okay, I know this character so well that this is what this character would do. This is so what this character would do. So, I was thinking, well, let me ask your Harrison, do you think we should take a break yet or and let them, do you guys feel okay to keep going or would you need to take a break real quick?
I'm fine right now. I'll need to turn on my external light on at some point when it gets
Okay.
dark.
Yeah.
But I've
Okay.
got
Great.
time. But I've got
Yeah.
time.
Maybe we
Okay,
can take a
Howard,
break in like 30 minutes or an hour if people want
that's
Yeah.
to.
perfect. Okay. So what I would like you guys to do, take something that you're working on right now, and I want you to go through those questions of character and character development, and I just want you to free write answers and just description. And here's the thing, don't worry if it's yucky. Don't, the first writing teacher I ever had, God love his heart, Larry Thompson, we called him Uncle Larry. And he used to talk about something called plot puking. And this is a form of plot puking. He would joke and say, okay, we're just going to puke all this information out and then we'll go through the peas and carrots later to see, what we can use. So I want you guys to take these questions and I'm going to give you 15 minutes. And I just want you to plot puke about one or maybe even more. If you want to focus back and forth, you can. I find it's probably better to focus on one character so you don't get a little too ADD. Um, Focus on that character for about 15 minutes answering some of those questions. And if you guys have any questions as you're writing, um, also another form of advice I will give you, when I was teaching writing in college, I had writing exercises, and the nastiest thing I would do is once you put your pen on the paper, you could not stop. If and I highly recommend doing exercises like this, pen to paper, and not stop to the point where something will come out. And I've literally had students go, Miss Meister is standing over me and she's staring at me right now. Now she's walking away. I can't stop moving this pen and she's over me and I don't know what to write about because I have to write about this person. And then all of a sudden it starts
Mhm.
coming out. If it doesn't make sense, don't worry about it. You, I don't know. Another person I will recommend um, is Natalie Goldberg, and and I'm going to give you guys some other books. There's a book called Down to the Bones by Natalie Goldberg. It is on Audible if you want to listen to it. I highly recommend getting the audio version because she reads it. She is the most awesome hippie freak writer, old lady, fantastic crone energy. And she just talks about writing in the moment and doing that thing. She used to do writing in the moment events where she would go to a carnival or someplace in a mall and she would sit down at a little table and she'd have a piece of paper and somebody would pay her $5 to write for 5 minutes. And then she would just give it away.
Mhm.
And the beauty of that exercise is one, I love it because it produces a lot of stuff. And two, she's given away so much writing that she has no idea what the hell she wrote. Um, I highly recommend her just as a writer, but she is the one where I got the don't let the pen leave the paper, even if you're writing lyrics to songs. Even if you're like uma chugga, something will come out. I promise you, because if you can't just not make sense for 15 whole minutes. I promise you. So so we've got, hey, 7:35, 36. Let's go ahead and start 15 minutes of question answering, and I'm gonna keep my chat on. Um, um, I love this. NYC used to have a person who kept typewriter on the subway stations. So yeah, it's that energy. That's very Natalie Goldberg. Um, but I'm gonna give you guys 15 minutes to just answer questions about a character that you are currently working with in your writing. And if you have any questions, I'm gonna have that open right there, the chat. So feel free to ask if you do. But all right, 7:36 and go. Okay, if you guys want to go ahead and try to wrap up whatever you're writing, we'll go ahead and stop there. So, so I want to do like a Q&A with you guys essentially. Like I'm going to ask some questions and then you guys will, if you can respond.
Mhm.
So the first thing I want to ask is what questions, was there a particular question that really hit you and you thought that's what I want to hit on to kind of get some development for my character? So I'm very curious, essentially, which questions did you guys choose to write upon?
Well, I was looking at the It's Alive Dissecting a Character page, and I went through the physical for a good like 20 sentences.
Yeah,
And then I started on the sociology, and that's when I really started to get into the meat of it.
yeah, yeah. Okay, cool, cool, cool. That's good. So was there anything in so I'm very curious. Tell me a little bit about your character that you're writing about, that you chose to write about, what you already knew about them.
Yeah, so it's it's a little bit of an odd situation because she and most of the characters in the play that I'm writing are all manifestations of um how the patriarchy messes with women, essentially,
Okay.
in
Okay.
various ways. So for
I
her in
love it.
particular, I was really thinking about in Michael Bay's Transformers movies, how played by Megan Fox, is portrayed very much like I'm a cool girl and my boyfriend hates me and I know about cars. And oh, wow, you also know about cars? Like, it's
Yes.
very much like a woman who is for you, not for herself, sort of thing.
Yes.
Very, very fetishized individual. And I started just trying to play with that. And I was like, okay, for a character who is basically just a stereotype, how do you get past that? How do you give that?
Yes. Okay. That's immediately when you started talking, I was like, that is very fascinating. And the true genius is in this is getting to know that character for their motivations of why they're the cliche. Like why they, what is it that even in the cliche makes them an individual and want to play into this whole idea. I'm already very interested. Like, wow, I'm very curious. If you need a cheerleader, please friend me on some form of social media so that I can cheerleader you on this. Also, there is a play that I cannot for the life of me remember the name of. It is a very old play. It's like from the 1940s. I will find it and send it to you. I think it will help you. It is about two women, and it's set, I think, in the Victorian era. And it's about two women who are sitting having a nice, polite little tea. And as they're talking, their ids are behind them, also participating in the dialogue. And it is a play I've always kind of wanted to produce. I feel like one, because it is an older play, I would almost bet unless you had a really weird theater teacher, you probably never read it. I had a really weird theater teacher, and I'm a lot older than you. But it is a play I think would kind of help you in a way, or not even guide you, but I feel like it might make you go, okay, there's something in here that might spark something for you. And I feel like it might spark something for you. So what did you end up writing about specifically about this particular character?
Um, so I'll just go through a very brief summary because it kind of went wacky.
Okay.
Um, so I started with the physical and I was like, okay, what's her outfit? And I was like, well, Michaela and Transformers is very much like very tiny jean shorts, crop top or a tank top, like stylish sneakers sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then I got to the question of health, and I wrote
Okay.
conveniently healthy. And then I started thinking about what does health mean when it's a very personal sort of relationship
Yeah.
to yourself, as opposed to like when someone's looking at you, you can't always tell what their health is, you know?
Yeah.
Um, it, like um, sorry, I'm trying to
No,
decipher right now.
don't. Yeah, it's okay. It's probably a mess, and that's fine. It's supposed to be a mess. That's part of the plot puking. I will tell you if you don't use the phrase conveniently healthy in something, I'm
Mm.
going to steal it from you.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
I won't steal it from you, but I'm telling you this to impress upon you how beautiful that phrase is. And it's one that people are going to resonate with as an audience member because especially with people with immunity issues, they get sort of frustrated like, "Oh, you ran 5 miles? Good for you."
Wow.
And,
What a champ.
yeah, like, "Oh, you got up at 5 in the morning, had a healthy breakfast, and then you did, a CrossFit class, then you went to work and worked an 8-hour shift, and then you came home and went for a walk." Oh, good for you. I don't know what your other characters are. How many characters are you looking at in this entire piece?
Total 6.
Six. Okay. And all of them are somewhat some sort of cliche of woman.
Yes, there is one who I also have a bit of an interest in psychology.
Okay.
One of them is a therapist character, and they're
Okay.
all sitting at group therapy with their therapist talking about um what it means to be a woman.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. I am digging this. So we're also looking at this is not in reality.
No.
Like this is like some other dimension entirely. You know what I think are okay, I'll just ask, are you overwhelmed with this?
I it I definitely like the past month, like February was really freaky. I'm just now starting to get back into, okay, this is getting it grounded again, I suppose.
You have a very, and this is not, this is a good thing. I'm going to preface it. This is a good thing. You have a very overwhelming concept there. There is so much you can do with this. There are so many directions you can go with this. So, do you know how you want to end this yet?
I have a
Have
very
a
good
goal.
idea. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Um, and is the focus outside of this therapist with these other five women the conflict between each of their archetypes?
It is both that as well as not a murder mystery because it's not like a whodunit kind of thing.
Okay.
Um, but it is like a one this isn't a huge spoiler. One of them starts talking about issues, they get very overwhelmed, and then they just collapse and they're dead.
Oh, I I love this. I am really loving this. And at some point, you and I need to have a Zoom coffee because we are writing two very similar characters right now.
Oh boy, okay.
Very, very similar characters.
Ah! Oh no.
Um, but very similar, but different enough to where I feel like we could probably spark some stuff with each other. So right now, and I'm off actually, since there's just two of you, the other six, no, I'm joking.
Uh,
Um, if either of you ever need outside of this to run something by someone, I am there. I am open to that. So please understand that before I go on with this too. So you have a character that just dies. That is incredible. It's all, and what a good analogy. It's just so hard to be a fucking woman. You know, I can't tell you the times in my 53 years of life I've just, if I could have fallen down dead, I probably would have. I love this. I love this. I feel like, and one of the things I was going to say, I feel like in moving forward with this, um, there's an issue with if this character's falling down dead, there's tension happening. And the more you kind of focus on the individuality at the you know what, if this is a women's place, we need to use individuality at some point. Individuality of each character, even in their stereotype, and then how each one has their own differences in order to create the conflict and create contrast. And I don't know if that's helping you, and I don't even know if it's making sense. And I feel like as you're moving forward, that might be where things get a little overwhelming and complicated. And the more, like with this exercise, I feel like if you can go through these and with each of your characters write enough about those questions, like, and I will say I think the questions on that It's Alive are better than the other one. I feel like the other one is a little bit more broad, where and as you're writing those questions for each character, think of the other characters and how things that happened with this character would be directly in conflict with other characters. And it's almost like as you're writing, you'll be like, oh, I bet that would piss this other character off, or this would be the thing that would create the tension. And so it's almost like as you're writing, put a little star by that thing. Because if you're like, oh, that, to give you an example, I did this exercise the other day, and I had a character say the nastiest line I have ever had a character say, which was, do you think that your wife died because it was the only way she could get away from you? And when
Hmm.
I wrote it, I knew, I'm like, oh, I put a star by it. I said, because this is not done here. This is something that is somehow either going to have to be brought up before now, or it's going to have to, this is something that's food. This is something that's food. Um, so as you're writing and you find these contrasts between the other characters or the thing that it's nice to have these moments where you have a thing with one character that you can almost imagine another character's eye twitching. And that's you want to star those things as you're going through this exercise and creating that tension. Um, let's see. So I'm just because, and we'll get to Barry. Barry, I promise we'll get to you. I'm very curious about, so you have like the Megan Fox. Also, what I think of that type of character, I think of oh, the woman from Jumanji, the beautiful girl with the red hair that is just kind of like
Oh,
superhero girl, just like, she's always she's beautiful and she's always and she's wearing the belly shirt. I get that type of character. I'm very curious about the other character, if you don't mind me asking. I'm very curious.
yeah. So, there's one who is like has not dealt with their anger issues and has therefore covered it up by being excessively controlled in
Oh,
everything they
wow.
do.
Okay.
I need to get a list because there's one, there is, and of course I don't have it in this notebook. Great. Me and my
Fine.
organization.
That's fine.
There's another one who, there was one particular story from my past that I really wanted to use, which is they just really hate a certain song, and that gets revealed later on.
Nice.
And that you sort of learn the little bits and details about why they hate that song so much and what led to that. There was another one who has an eating disorder and has overcome it by being like, "Oh, I'm a vegan and I do yoga." Um,
All of these women so far, it's frightening. I know every single one of these women.
yeah, yeah.
I
Um,
like
I
the
have
minute they
decided,
popped up, like, this is their name.
yeah,
Go
yeah.
ahead. Sorry.
I have decided to make the therapist just slightly catty because, you know,
Yeah.
I have had one before.
Yes. Yeah. The character that says that line that I had about the, do you think your wife is a therapist? This therapist says that to her client.
Yes.
God.
She is a bitch. The other nasty thing she said is like, do you think divorcing you was on a list of things she had to do the day she died? Like, go to the grocery store, check. Get the oil changed, check. Divorce my husband, check. And then she died, check. Yeah. So I feel very much like I get what you're doing here. Uh, so here's the question I have too with this. Is there do each of them have a catharsis? Is that the end where each of them have some sort of emotional development or understanding or revelation that brings them to killing this like this one character dying?
Um, yes and no.
Okay.
It varies per character.
Okay. 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 I am ridiculously curious about this. Again, I'm going to give you my information. If I don't give it to you, I know Harrison has it. If there is anything that I can help you with, my door is open for this. So,
Thank
And
you.
that goes for you too, Barry. And I know you're writing things. I know you're writing things. So I want to come back to you, but I want to go ahead and go to Barry, and I want to hear about where same sort of questions like what question sparked joy for your character or sparked terror for your character?
Okay, so first I want to say, Helena, I'm one of your biggest fans. I know really. I mean, I really enjoyed working with you, and I appreciate you helping with my table read a couple years ago.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
so that's awesome. I'm really anxious to see see what you come up with in your play, especially what I've heard so far. Um, so this play that I've just started, actually, it's only started at about a week. Well, I started like officially working on it about a week ago.
Okay.
I wrote part of it, a 10-minute play version of this, um, a couple years ago.
Okay.
And as I wrote it and I finished it, I realized this is act one or scene one of a longer play. And I kept it on my shelf for a while. And then I got to talking to somebody last week and I realized, oh, okay, I've got to go back to this. And as you can see, I am the whitest bread white boy that you probably will ever meet. So of course, my main character, Harrison is the exception. That's true. You're right. I forgot. I will make
Carry
allowances for
on.
that.
That's funny.
Carry on.
S- So of of course, the main characters in my play are African American.
Okay.
Um, the character that I wrote about or that I did the exercise about is the father of a family of two children and his wife. They are civil rights activists in the late 60s. They are friends and allies and compatriots of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Okay.
They are working in Washington, D.C. The father, his name is John Rowland, and a lot of this is real preliminary. It could
Okay.
change, at a moment's notice, depending
Yeah.
on what's going on. Um, he is a businessman and works at a high level of business. He works for a mining company as an engineering executive. He has learned to work the business life, the business angle in DC, and in addition, the political angles. And he and his wife have formed a political group working towards nonviolent solutions to civil rights issues. And the play picks up as they welcome into their home a young white girl who is the daughter of an investor in his oil company that lives in South Africa.
Okay.
And she has moved to the U.S. Partly to get away from some of the violence in South Africa that is happening, anti-apartheid, that's going on about the same time. And I've done some research, and that's one of my favorite things about writing is
The research.
doing the research.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything that I've done so far have been set in past times or require a lot of deep dives in culture and time and that sort of thing. So, and she has become to the U.S. to be the nanny and tutor to these kids. And she is a product of apartheid era South Africa and has grown up. And she has a college degree. She's in her 20s, but is so naive about for civil rights in America, of course, but just the way that people of color have been, can be, should be treated in her own culture. She's incredibly naive and is plunged into this world. And the day that she gets to DC to start her job is the day that Martin Luther King is assassinated.
Oh, wow.
And the riots in DC begin just down the street from where they are. There is chaos. There are other characters that will come, and there will probably be about 7 characters or 8 characters in the story. There is violence, there is gunfire down in the streets, there are injured people that they bring into their apartment to assist. The wife is an ER nurse at GW, George Washington University Hospital, one of the only black nurses, if they may be the only black nurse in that area. And I'm just going on about the play, but the father is a pacifist,
Okay.
and he is desperately dedicated to the cause of civil rights, and is very much into affecting change through legislation and through lobbying and through moving in the power circles in Washington at that time. Of course, in
And this is a
'68,
black man.
a black man.
Okay.
Exactly. He is dressed very in conservative white suits, white culture suits, but he also has an affectation. Some people might call it an affectation of wearing African tribal
Okay.
accoutrements
Okay.
that display his heritage. He's not sure if he's doing this because he has a real deep-seated um, connection, or if he's doing this as something to make himself memorable. So
Okay.
that's part of his makeup, part of his appearance. And the chief conflicts of the play are going to be his and his wife dealing with this girl, and this girl is going to grow up a lot during the course of the play and learn a lot about herself and about the
Okay.
world around her. And they, as a consequence, are also going to learn from her a lot about her culture and those sort of things. And what I want to do is write this play where two two individuals, or groups of individuals from completely different backgrounds are thrust into a very dangerous and stressful situation and have a lot of time to sit in their apartment while chaos is going on outside and talk to each other and discuss and argue and that sort of thing. Again, and the other conflict is the husband's growing pacifism and growing attachment to pacifism, and his wife drifting in the other direction in
That
anger.
was what I was going to ask about, that the violence there is like what, because my question as you were talking is like, what is it going to take for one of these characters to be pushed over
Yeah,
their
yeah.
limit?
And
And yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
so during the course of the play, there is one of their friends is there in the apartment with them. He's injured. They have found an elderly woman that is a neighbor of theirs on the street, and they brought her in. The wife is taking care of her. At this point, she's unconscious, laying on the couch for the entire play. And she may wake up at the end. I don't know. I'm only in the scene 2, so I don't know exactly, but that's kind
Okay.
of the plan. And she's sort of a symbol, an ongoing person, a symbol on this stage of how violence can affect the innocent, whether it's justified or not.
Okay.
And then the other shoe that drops is that at the end of Act One, the police arrive, and a policeman comes to their door, and he is shot, and they bring him in and tend to his wounds, and he is white.
Oh
And
wow.
so the rest of the play will be the 7 of them, 8 if you count the unconscious lady,
Hmm.
in this apartment together, trying to survive the night and trying to learn about each other.
Oh
So,
wow.
so it's just a farce, obviously. It's
I mean, it's a comedy.
lots of slamming doors, all over the place.
Yeah,
It's going to be
noise it
great.
off. I will say immediately the two plays that really I feel if you wanted to read something, one of them I feel like you're going to go, okay, yeah, is The Diary of Anne Frank.
Yes.
Like immediately that was, and then also a play called The Desperate Hours.
I've heard that. I don't remember
Um,
run offhand.
what you're describing to it's a different sort of plot, but the whole thing breaks down to um, this family are kind of taken siege by violence in the house and they can't get out of the house. And
Hmm.
it's about them dealing with the violence on the exterior that, and that might be something that if you're looking for something to read that's going to kind of maybe spark, those are the two I would highly recommend. And then, of course, oddly, when I went to graduate school, there are three plays. My Deborah was like, there are three plays that if you read these three plays, they're the only three plays you need to read if you have to read plays. And it is the not the Glass Menagerie. It is Streetcar Named Desire. Um, oh God, why can't I think of it? A Raisin in the Sun and Madame
Hmm.
Butterfly. And she's like, everything you can learn. Again, a Raisin in the Sun feels very much like
Yeah.
something that I would draw some inspiration from. This sounds very fascinating. I will say intuitively, my psychic Callie said, this is the play Barter's going to take.
Okay.
That's the one they're going to jump at.
Hmm.
That's right on their sweet spot.
Kelly, could I interrupt real quick just to
Yeah.
make sure who were you saying recommended those three plays?
Deborah Brevoort,
Okay, thank you.
she was my main advisor at Goddard. I was
Yes.
very lucky to have. I tell people I studied under Paula Vogel because Deborah studied under Paula Vogel, and
Oh,
everything I learned from Deborah was basically Paula Vogel. And then I got to study under a guy named Kyle Bass, who runs a theater in New York, and then Susan Kim, who wrote the play version of the Joy Luck Club,
thank you.
and also has a really beautiful book called Flow, and it's about the history of menstruation. It's a great book. I highly recommend it to any woman, well, anybody actually. Um, those are the things. It sounds to me like you've done a lot of research on this. Like you've
Hmm.
done a lot. Your knowledge of this is wonderful. I feel like the only challenge in this is keeping the momentum. And once you get that momentum going, another graduate school writing advice I would give you. This is from this is actually from the rule book of Marilyn Callett. I don't know if you guys know who Marilyn Callett is. She's a big deal in Knoxville. She was the head of creative writing at UTK for like 35 years. She's retired now. If you get a chance to go see Marilyn Callett in Knoxville, I would highly recommend it. She is an amazing woman, but her teaching is that oh God, my brain went um it went Marilyn Callett's philosophy on writing. Harrison, I've had a brain fart.
It happens to the best of us.
It happens
So,
to the best of us. Go
um,
ahead.
yeah, so just trying to catch you up. You're talking about Deborah and the three plays, Streetcar
Deborah,
Named
and then
Desire,
yeah,
Raisin in the Sun, and Madame Butterfly.
um getting to see reading those threes, if you're going to read any plays, those are a good three to start with. Um, and just, if you're looking for any sort of structure. But that sounds like getting the momentum and keeping, oh, writing exercise. I knew I would go back there. Um, the best time to write is literally right after you get up. If you can figure out a way to do this, I literally will get my K cup started. And this is where I was going with the Maryland thing. I will get my K cup started. I will have my coffee cup underneath there. I will have the powdered sugar in there. I will have everything so that literally I will have my notebook and my paper on my table. So literally all I have to do is get up, go to the table, get my coffee, begin to drink, and write for 15 to 20 minutes, unedited, unthought. Because when you get up, your brain is not awake. So your brain is not critical and it's not judging you. And you are writing free form. You're not worried. You're not judging. You literally might write some of the craziest shit you've ever written in your life. But if you will do that, you will find such wonderful gems that come out of that, that will be things that you can grow, that you can plant as seeds and grow. And you don't have to do that every day. Like if you want to have that sort of free flow moment, like maybe every Monday or the day Saturday, like get up and make yourself do that for 15 minutes to the most, 30, and just write whatever the hell comes out. It doesn't even have to be about your play. It could be about a conversation you had with your mother, but something, the key to writing is writing. And I know that sounds crazy, but, and I tell people, everybody wants to write, but if it were easy, and if it were easy, they all would write. That's why they don't. It is not easy. And so the true difference between a philosopher and a writer is a philosopher has ideas and a writer writes them down. And so just making yourself, it's this, the getting it out there, getting it on the page, getting it there. I'm glad I figured the Maryland connection out. That was her exercise, is like making yourself write first thing in the morning just to see what the hell comes out and understanding, keeping it. And also what's good, don't read it. When you're done with it, don't read it, put it aside, then go back that night and read it. And you'll be like, what sort of fresh hell mess is this? And again, star the things that spark joy as a writer. Um, a good thing to do, to give you an example, my thesis play was 90 pages long. At one point, it was 356 pages. Yeah, I know. Yeah, see, yes, I feel you.
How dare you, Kelly? How
Exactly.
dare you?
So there
That's
was a
amazing.
point where really I just had to read it and highlight or star things that I'm like, that has to stay in here, and this shit can completely go. That is the true Kyle Bass, my favorite phrase. Editing, it's not about editing, it's about revision. And I think people get this concept of revision as somebody with a red ink bleeding all over your paper and being a nasty, horrible person. But the way you have to, and as you're helping other people, the way to see revision is to see again. You're just seeing this again with different eyes. And I think, again, this is why it's good for writers who are actors to write, because literally, I have a character named Ludmilla who does my revisions. And Ludmilla will sit down, she will read script, and she'll go, this makes no fucking sense. Um, think outside yourself. Try not to let your heart get so engaged that you can't kill your darlings. And I mean, that's, I can't remember what wonderful writer said that about killing your darlings. But at certain points, you will have to kill your darlings. It doesn't mean they can't reincarnate and come back as something else. And the more you're writing, the more that will happen. That will absolutely happen. You will put something in a play that you wrote 15 years ago. You will, every writer I know who's been writing for 20 plus years has file cabinets full of shit that they wrote 15, 20 years ago. And at some point, they'll be writing something and something will go, oh, that thing I wrote for that article, there was a line in there. I need to go get that. The more you plot puke out, the better. It is not a waste. There is no waste of time when writing. Absolutely no waste of time when writing. So, okay. So I want to add to that exercise. Where we're writing about the character list. Um, I kind of want you to take another character in this piece that you're writing, and I want you to have them be angry in some way or agitated or find conflict with whatever this is that you wrote about that person about. Does that make sense? Is that something that within the context of both of these potential plays is going to spark something? Does that make sense? Is that a
Hmm.
good question? So, oh, and again, do we want to take a break real quick?
Are you guys doing?
Whatever you want to do.
I'm good if you guys are good.
Let's go.
All right, let's do this. So I want you to take another character and basically have them agitated about whatever qualities that you wrote about. And I want them to have their own little monologue to that character about their distinct personality and as to why that sort of stuff is creating conflict for them. So does that make sense? And is
Hmm.
that doable?
Yes. You just
Ec-
want us to write a monologue from this other character
From this
in
other
response.
character as a response to like, okay, this is who you are. Well, this about you annoys me, and this is why it annoys me. And it's almost like, okay, I'm calling you on the carpet.
Mhm.
I am putting these things out there about you in a way that you may not necessarily see them as being an issue. But they annoy me. Is a good way. This is an exercise that's actually in that 90-day playwriting book, and it's called The Angry Monologue.
Mm,
And so you're right. That's where I came up with the thing about the character wondering if the woman died just so that because it was the only way she could get away from her husband. Um, so find something and latch onto it and just spend 10 minutes, because I don't think this will need as much. Spend 10 minutes letting that character sort of eviscerate the other character. And do not fear nastiness. This is where, again, Bill Larson taught that raise the stakes. Like, how, because we are, as people are horrible. They can be, we can be wonderful, but this is a moment for this character to just be unfiltered and horrible if you want them to be. That doesn't mean, again, you have to use any of this. It's more of a like getting that character's personality out. Like, what is this person like when they're mad? What is the thing that pushes them over? And it just happens to be this thing about this other person. So it is 8:32. We'll write till 8:42.
Okay.
sounds
And
great.
yeah, and I'll be back at 8:42.
Thank you, Ted.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap that up. And I'll start with Barry this time. So, how did that feel getting that out?
Well, this monologue is probably some form of it will be incorporated into the play because it's an inevitable confrontation between John and his wife Janet,
Nice. Nice.
where they have it out. She has it out with him over his pacifistic views because their son has been shot in the midst of this terrible day.
Yeah.
And he won't fight back. He didn't fight back, and it cost them. I don't know if he's died yet or not. Hopefully not. I don't think I'm going to kill the kid. But yeah, so that's what this is, and it's definitely a lot of hidden or suppressed thoughts and emotions that the wife has been holding back for a long time.
Okay.
They are have been working towards raising a family and this common goal of civil rights. Um, but they have two very different ways that they feel like it should be, it should be done, and their methods have converged up until this point, where there's a touch point or a flash point, and now they are diverging. And Whether they can remain together as a couple is remains to be seen. I have no idea.
Okay.
But yeah,
I love it. Okay. So now I just want to warn you, we're not done yet. We're not done. We're not done. Okay, Helena, how did is this something you feel is going to go into what you're writing, or did this help, or is this something that felt a little floundering or anything?
Um, Actually, the opposite. I think it was very direct. It was very,
Good.
very mean.
Good. Mean is good. Mean is good, especially with what it sounds like you're writing. Mean, channeling the inner bitch is going to be a benefit to you in this. So this is something that you're feeling like maybe it could pull into what you're working on.
Yeah, there's as of right now, I have very like a couple of sections of the play
Okay.
like very clearly thought out, and I need to piece them together because I really like what's going on right now, and I just need to make sure things flow in the right way.
Okay.
And I think I just created a connecting bit to get to a scene that I really want to write. So
That was the
cool.
goal.
Mhm.
Now I'm going to add something to this. Okay. So what I want you to do is take a couple of minutes and look at this monologue. And I want you to find natural breaks in the monologue. And I
Mhm.
want you to have that other character respond. And so I want you to turn this monologue potentially into a scene. Now, it doesn't, here's the thing too. If you just want that other character to have one response, they can just have one response. If you want that character to have two, three, four, if you want a real David Mamet sort of thing where the other character is interrupting as this is going along, that can be fun. I'm thinking though, Barry, for you, this probably wouldn't be if you're dealing with a pacifistic character. This is not going to be Barry, David Mamet. This is going to be more like a silent burn. But I focus on where you can find moments to interject that other character's self into this, whether it's an explanation or a defense or another attack. That character can just like, oh, well, you push, well, fuck you. I'm gonna come at you also. And maybe that character finds a quality in that other character and begins to tear it apart. Whatever you want to do with this other character to have them have response in the midst of this monologue. And again, if this is something you don't want to keep in that regards, this is literally just sort of playing. But my goal for the night was understanding you guys came into this with pieces you were already working on. My goal was you to be able to take something home and go, okay, I have something here that I can play with. So I'm going to give you guys another 10 minutes to take that monologue and interject whatever that other character. And here's the thing too, it doesn't necessarily have to be that other character that's being attacked. If you want to really play with it, add a third character interjecting into this. That might be interesting because then you have like, okay, we have something defending something that's not the thing, or even maybe they're adding to it. Like, okay, like, yeah, you're right, and this and this and this too. And while we're at it, just add this to make it more of a scene than a monologue. Is basically what I'm going for. And it is 8:48, so I'm gonna give y'all till 8:58 to interject into that and go. Okay, you guys go ahead and try to wind that up. All right. So the questions I have, did this also spark something? Or was this a little bit more complicated?
No, actually, it wasn't complicated. I think it helped define a little bit more of the relationship because what I did was in the midst of this long monologue, John, the pacifist father, actually doesn't say anything. The friend interjects on his behalf, trying to calm the wife down, and John just takes it, which can be, I thought in my head, it can be taken a couple of ways.
Yeah.
He's letting other people fight his battle for him, which could be an interpretation of that,
Yeah.
or he's just exhibiting this pacifism, this lack of need to rise to bait, which is a hallmark of violence in that people act without thinking and act without consideration of the consequences. So there's a couple of things where in the middle of it where this friend takes up for him a little bit. The wife just plows on through, and at the end he gets up and walks away.
Oh,
So I've
wow.
added a little to the end after she's spent and she's said everything she has to say, and he walks out and he does turn around and say a couple of little pithy things,
Yeah.
uh, sort of underlining his position, but then he has galvanized the young girl to basically, if the scene goes on, she's gonna rip the mom a new one.
Okay.
And
Nice.
that sets it up for the next confrontation because he's going to leave the room, and she so has been won over to his cause that she's going to risk her own naivete and all this. Of course, this will be late in the play, and things will have changed for her,
Yeah.
so it will see a growth for her.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice. Okay. That that makes me happy. That thrills me. All right, Helena, how did this go for you?
Um, I was a little worried at first because I was like, this feels so much like just a monologue. It doesn't, especially with like what's being said, it feels like somebody's just throwing pinpoint accurate insults at someone and they're just in stunned silence receiving it. I
Yeah.
still played with it and I found a couple of options, but it still feels more natural to leave it as a monologue.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so it kind of helped in that regard. It was good to sort of narrow out any possible options.
Okay. Well, that in itself is also good and a plus. And if anything comes out of this night, both of that thrills me. Absolutely. So one of the things I did send you, I kind of want to go into very quickly. So one of the exercise I sent you was about genre. And we're not going to go into that tonight because there's a lot of genres in there. Um, that is a good list to have. In fact, it's so funny. Deborah Brevoort that I was telling you about, that is my favorite assignment she ever gave me during graduate school, and I had lost it. And literally at the last minute, right before I sent it to you guys, I messaged her. I said, Deborah, I know you don't like to do this, but can you please send me that exercise about genre and the scavenger hunt? And she was like, yeah, yeah, I wouldn't do that for a lot of people, but I'll do it for you. So it's good to just be able to look at genre and the conventions of drama genre, because sometimes when you're stuck, it's not so much the character or the conflict, or it can be playing with a different sort of convention and looking at where theater has been before, and you can hunt and pick in certain, like if you want a little Shakespeare, especially Elena with what you're writing, I feel like you could like be writing a Shakespeare for 3 page and then all of a sudden go into Ionesco. Or, then, you have 20 pages of Eugene O'Neill, and then, you could really, the cool thing about having that sort of environment where you aren't in a realistic timeline, it can go as far out as you want it to. Like this could really the best advice I can give you as you're moving forward this, don't be afraid to do something crazy. Like to do something like this doesn't, as long as your story makes sense, the conventions don't have to make sense. As long as you understand what you're writing, um, it's fine. Oh, and another thing I want to, this is something, um, in conversation that I had with one of the playwrights, and this was JP. He was talking about writing things like, is there an audience? Like, I want to write this thing, and but I worry that nobody's going to get it. No, is this such a niche thing that it won't have an audience? And my answer to that is absolutely freaking not. Um, if you want to write it, write it. Like somebody out there is going to love what you're writing. That they just are. As long as you're telling a story that hits you in the soft spot, it's going to hit somebody else in a soft spot. I mean, unless you're Neil LaBute, and that's a story onto itself. Um, and so hit you in the soft spot. But yeah, so the reason I sent that thing is so you guys can kind of have that to look at, to like, okay, if I want to have some information on this and I want to play with this, I can totally play with that. So that being said, the last little bit of time, we've got what, like 25 minutes. Are there any questions you guys have about what you're writing, about anything with production, about anything, any sort of playwriting thing? And I will try to answer it. And I cannot guarantee I won't ADD off on some tangent and hope that Harrison can grab my ass and pull me back onto center like he did with Marilyn Callett. But yeah, feel free to ask any questions. And also, I put my email address. I am on I am on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Blueski. I am everywhere. So, but I am more inclined to respond if you contact me through Facebook because I am on Facebook unless I'm asleep. And so that's it is always in my periphery somehow. And I suggested some books. There are other ones, but specifically, I love any of the Save the Cat books. The thing about the Save the Cat books, there are three or four of them. I have Save the Cat Strikes Back. Um, they're one. I will say they are screenwriting books. They are designed for screenwriting, but they are also very helpful with playwriting in regards to story, structure, characterization, and dialogue. They're very good. So they can kind of go back and forth. And then the 90-day play, and then like Harrison, backwards and forwards. That's the and then also if you want to get really crazy, you feel like being really stupid, um, Aristotle's Poetics. That it's like 45 pages. I had to write a 500 page paper on for it. It was That's the one thing about graduate school I want to kill Deborah for. Like, really, Aristotle? We're gonna write an entire freaking like 250 page paper on that? Okay. Um, but I recommend that one. And then there's a couple others that I'll send you that are playwriting books. There are a couple that I will tell you not to get because they're really bad. They're just like, they're not worth your time. At this point, y'all don't need playwriting for dummies. You don't need it. It's a fine book, but this is more for high school, first year college, but there are a couple others I'll send to you. But yeah, so do you guys have any questions that are like sparking?
I'd like to get your opinion on a little bit of reflecting on what you've done tonight. Um, in the last few days, I have come across a fellow playwright on Facebook that's on one of the playwriting groups that I'm on, and she has written a play, and it's her first. She called it a full length. It was only about 30, maybe 45 pages or so,
Oh,
which
wow.
is
Okay.
fine.
Yeah.
Um, and it was the idea and the plot of the play was okay, but
Mm.
the formatting of the play was completely, it was like she had written a short story. And there
Oh,
was lots of the character thinks this and thinks that in the stage directions, and it was all over the map. I mean, it's just because she had not written a play before. And I gave her, myself gave her a couple of, hey, here's some things you might want to try, and she was very appreciative, and she went back around and made another pass at it, and I read it again, and it was a little bit better. But
okay.
how would you go about helping out a fellow playwright who is very early in the process and has some good ideas, and really wants to do it, but is going to be climbing a long ladder if unless they really learn some good playwriting technique.
Um, Specific and gentle. I mean that is one you might consider a playwriting program for them. And there is a free one, and I recommend it. In fact, Quentin Tarantino wrote freaking Pulp Fiction on Celtics. It is free online. You don't have to pay for it, and it will format plays for you. Also, it might be a good idea for her to read a play that's being written that's not a script like Samuel French, or um, to read it in real time. Like, okay, this is what your play should look like, to the point where it doesn't hurt to look online for scripts of larger productions, so she doesn't think like, oh, this is how he does it. No, this is how everybody does it. This is the universal way that you want to write a play. And you it's almost like a situation of Hansel and Gretel with her at this point for you. Like, you have to be strategic in the breadcrumbs that you're leaving for her. And it is a question of like, okay, and then you have to understand too that at a certain point, you can only do so much.
Yeah.
Like there's a part of it where, and that's the hardest part, because part of you wants to go, well, no, no, no. And I've been that person. When I was in my 30s, I was that person. You ask Tom Parkhill, I'm sure he can tell you wonderful stories about Cali pissing playwrights off during the Tennessee Stage Company play festivals. You don't know. There are plot holes bigger than the gap between Molly Ringwald's teeth. What? Yeah. But gentility, being gentle and encouraging, but realistic. I mean, that's where, because at a certain point you're going to have to say that's an improvement. There are still things you could do, but that's an improvement.
Hmm.
And then at a certain point, this is the harsh thing you can do. At a certain point, if you feel like this woman does want to keep going, like if she really wants to take herself seriously, suggest that she submit the play to a festival or a competition and just see what happens. And if anything, if she is willing to actually do the work, that failure or disappointment can be a really good lesson
Hmm.
outside of yourself. Because at a certain point, you are going to have to pass this off to somebody else. And finding somebody else who is patient and willing to also be as supportive, that's a hard part there. But at a certain point, if you really want her to grow, you're going to have to hand her off to
Yeah.
somebody some other way.
She has some interesting ideas on how to structure the narrative. In this particular, the second go around, she actually had the characters, almost every character at some point in the play, break the fourth wall and
Oh,
sort of do that film noir thing that they do on Whose Line Is It Anyway, where
okay.
they'll comment to the audience about something they're thinking or some thought they've had about the other character, and then they'll turn back to the dialogue, which can be fun if you work
Yeah,
it, you know,
yeah.
but it's not the tone of the piece doesn't support that.
Okay.
So, I think if she tried to get it produced or if she tried to do a reading of it, I think people would go, yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, here's a question you might want to ask her too. What it's kind of sounding like, she might not be a playwright, she might be a screenwriter.
I think that's kind of that or like I said, a short story writer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, I said, one of the things that I recommended to her was the story, the kernel of the story is going to be there regardless.
Yeah.
Find the medium that is the
Yeah.
most comfortable and that fits you best and fits the story best. If it's a song, make it a song.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It
we'll
sounds like
see.
you are doing the absolute correct thing and that
Okay.
you are being supportive and helping her to figure out, you are helping her with her path.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, whether she stays on that path is entirely up to her. All you can do is lay down the breadcrumbs. That's
Yeah.
literally all you can do. So, yeah. So, did that help?
Yes, absolutely.
Yay, yay, yay. So, anything else you guys have questions about or curious about or have anything you're wanting to know? Anything. Because I can.
I definitely want to leave space for Barry and Helena if they have anything.
Yeah.
If they don't, I can jump in on something. No?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good.
Callie, could you tell us a little bit about like what some of your earliest teaching challenges were? I would be interested in learning more a little bit about what that was like as you became someone who was helping other writers, more like what some of the earliest challenges were.
You know, um,
If it's me, you can say that.
confidence. Confidence is the biggest thing and trusting yourself. And because I have had situations where I'm teaching and I just kind of spoke to that tonight. It's like, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's we'll see. And what you have to trust that no matter what happens, you're going to get where you need to get. That you're going to, if you have it, also if you have a directive, it doesn't quite matter how you get there as long as you get there. My favorite, and I have done oddly, I've done a lot of pedagogy because that was all we had to do pedagogy at Goddard with the graduate school with the teaching practicum. And I did a lot of bell hooks. And like if you want to know how to read bell hooks books and oddly study the writing of Taylor Mali. Taylor Mali is a slam poet who is a teacher, and he wrote poems about what it is to be a teacher. And they're some of the best thing he ever said about teaching was the way to be a good teacher is to know what your students need to know before they know they need to know it.
Mm.
And that, when I heard him say that, like in part of the poem, he was like, walking up to this girl's desk and he's saying something ridiculous and she's like, Mr. Molly, why are you so crazy? I'm just saying I need a, and before pencil can get out, he slammed it down on her desk. And it's like, I knew you needed that before you even knew you needed it. And so there is a level of literally just intuition and trusting the knowledge you have and seeking more knowledge. And also, um, the Marilyn Callett again. The other thing she taught me as a teacher is that all teachers are students. And the minute you stop believing that the minute you believe you know everything, you are a shitty teacher because you can't. You cannot. I have had so many moments. I mean, just tonight, I have so many moments where I learned so much from my students. And when you're going forward as a teacher, you have to be humble enough to know that there are people you are teaching who know more than you know, who have experience you do not have. And let yourself be receptive to that and appreciate it in the moment. That will make you a more relatable teacher. Um, and because at the end of the day, what encourages somebody to keep going is the recognition that you see their work has value. And the minute you can, express that and pull that even more out of your students, the more they're going to produce. They just are. And so there is a balance there. So I hope that made sense.
Thank you. That's great.
Made
I
sense.
appreciate
And so yeah. Anything else you guys can think of? Because we've got about 10 more minutes. I can give you another writing exercise if you
that.
if you want. Um, why don't we do that? We'll end it out with an exercise for 5 minutes. Um, oh, this is a fun one. Um, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm so crazy that way. Um, from the perspective of the first character that had that first monologue, um, have them discuss the first time or the moment they fell in love for the first time. And it can relate to a character in this, but I want it to be specific to what that character needs in intimacy, if that makes any sense. This needs to be more about intimacy and what they require in intimacy and what they find to be intimate. It's so funny for my partner and I, every night we watch Jeopardy and that's our intimacy. We sit across from each other and we watch Jeopardy and we eat dinner and that's our intimacy. Like that's a lovely moment for us. And so think about what they consider as intimacy and it is 9:20. We'll do that till 9:25.
Okay.
All righty. All right, you guys go ahead and wrap that up. I'm giggling because one of my dogs is snoring very loud. I was wondering if you guys were hearing it. All right, let's go ahead and wrap that up. Now, here's the thing. If you were to play more with that, I think that especially after you have this monologue where somebody tore a character up, I think the next step at some point you have to have a dialogue moment with that other character that got their their shit handed to them, their ass handed to them. You need to have a moment where they need to discuss what they need to feel nurtured, what they need to alleviate this. But I feel like it's a nurturing thing as opposed to an intimacy thing. But the intimacy could be part of it too. So how did that go for you guys? Did anything come out of that?
Yeah, it was great. And I really, I'm probably going to use that too in the play at some point because it's funny because the more that I think about this play, more and more I want to lose the little white girl.
Huh. Well,
I'm losing focus on who the main character should be. I'm really
Wow.
liking the dynamic between these two parents. Um, I don't know. I'm sure I can figure it out, but the wife who had the monologue where he was railing against his pacifism,
uh-huh.
she's relating to one of the other characters I didn't write who about when she was first registering for classes in college and it was frustrating and the registrar was getting everything wrong and she was about to blow up and he just came up beside her, and his voice, what I wrote was like, were like clouds drifting by in the clear blue sky, and it melted her anger, and he took care of everything for her, and he used his words and his calmness to solve the problem. And he disappeared into the crowd after he was done. And she said, from that moment, I was hooked. So,
I will say, not that I'm saying throw that character out. Tonight, I have found that both of that wife and husband dynamic very compelling. And and oddly too, and I'm going to put this, I want to hook you up, Barry, with my friend Maria Chow. She lives in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and she has a black theater
hmm
where she does like she has a whole play she does about black hair. And I kind of want to hook you up with her because also your story, a bridge. My friend Maria, her father was a Black Panther in Pennsylvania.
yeah,
And one night they had a location, a strip mall, and the KKK came in and destroyed the inside of the building. And every Wednesday night, oddly, they had a public access show that came on, and this happened Tuesday night. So Maria's father went in and they started to roll the public access show, and it opens on the screen of Maria's father cleaning a gun.
mm,
And he looks up at the camera and says, "Well, it looks like we had some visitors last night. Sure sad that I wasn't here to greet them." And this little thing was on public record somewhere, but I feel like there's an energy like that you're going to be playing into with this. And I
hmm
feel like as far as networking, I want to hook you up with her. She and I went to graduate school together. She's a poet, but she also writes plays because that's another thing I could go into for an hour and a half. The connection between poetry and playwriting is very um hand in hand. Like
hmm
playwriting would not exist without poetry. And in fact, most playwrights, if they would study some poetry, it would help them immensely in regards to dialogue and economy of dialogue. And getting a big story out in a small space. But yeah, I want to hook you up with her. But okay, I'm glad I'm glad that that came out of that. I'm glad. I'm thrilled. In fact, I can go to bed tonight and be happy that you guys have things to take home with you.
yeah. And I knew that at some point before the play probably even ever gets to a table read or anything like that, I have to have conversations with folks that
Yeah,
know, that have the background and history in the culture that I just don't know, because I don't want to, obviously don't want to insult anyone. I don't want to sell anyone short. I don't want to be naive myself as a playwright
yeah.
to presume that I know how, certain people should
But
act.
how it feels to be a black person. Like you can have
Exactly.
as from the human experience, but and I feel like Maria would be good for that.
Good.
Maria
That's
is
perfect.
very open to that, and I'll shoot her out a message before I'll shoot her out a message tonight, but I'll hook you guys up on
Thank you.
Facebook. And plus, you'll she's just I love her to death. She's such a good person. So, so Helena, did anything come out of that for you, the intimacy exercise?
Um, it's kind of interesting, a little bit.
Okay.
Um, but it also made me think this character is a therapist who's supposed to be running group therapy. That's a very awkward position for like a human who needs intimacy, but cannot ethically ask for it from these people that she's trying to help, her
Yeah.
clients, you know?
Yeah.
That's not really a line you can cross. And I kind of played with the lines of like, okay, well, what if she said this with a partner? And then there were a couple of ideas that came up that I think I could use for the play in certain
Yeah.
circumstances because she's not going to be a good therapist.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun.
Cool. It sounds very much like some of the stuff you're writing is very much about blurred lines. in all of the dynamics of these women. And like I said, both of these pieces, I'm very curious to watch where you guys go with these. I'm super, super interested. And if I can think of anybody outside to connect you to also, and Harrison knows, I don't know how much I would recommend Sundress Academy to connect with them also. Sundress is a local um, writing publication group, but the reason I think that they would be interested in also maybe collabing with Harrison and you is that they're highly feminist. They are high, like that is a girl. That is girls. Like that is literally girls, women, also highly supportive of trans writers and LGBTQ. But if there's any other like, because I feel like I feel like you have gotten your feet and legs very wet, but I feel like you can dive into this. And I feel like at a certain point when you dive into this, you are going to be a scuba diver. Like I'm not sure you will come up from the water. And I'm excited to hear about that. I'm excited once you hit that high, that writing high, that it's gonna be crazy. So, well, we're right at 9:30. If is there anything else you guys have any questions about or anything you want to express or anything you want to get out or anything?
Thank
I
you.
sorry, this is not really related at all, but I wrote a line that I thought was so bitter and so horrible, and I just want to see someone's reaction to
Yes,
this.
I'm gonna have a stiff face so I can really react to it.
Mm.
Okay. You chose to give up on yourself so no one else could have the pleasure.
Ooh.
Mhm.
That's cool.
Ooh, I love it.
I like it.
Yes. Yes. I love it. It's a scorpion line because you think it's like ooh. Oh, that is delicious.
Mm.
That's
That is
lot of layers there, a lot of levels of burn.
yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, that is ooh.
Well, I can't think of any other questions right away. I just want to recognize that I very much appreciate you being a part of this, Callie. Thank you so much
Welcome.
for joining in with us today. And it means a lot to have the person I consider my first playwriting mentor to then come back some number of years later and support the people that I'm trying to, help mentor in this sort of way. It means a lot. I can't appreciate you enough on this.
Well, and
Thank
it means a lot that you trust me, and thank you for having. I should warn, I hope this doesn't. I had a stroke 5 years ago, so my brain occasionally goes. So if it did that a lot tonight, I apologize. It's partial. I know it's happening when it happens, and I can usually pull it back in,
you.
but sometimes I just kind of go, let's change the subject. So, but yeah, so I apologize if that was an issue at any point.
You're
But
good.
but
I
yeah.
just love sitting talking about theater and playwriting for 3 hours.
It
It's
you
the
know
best way I could spend my evening.
that the way I see it is you can't mess up talking with other theater people about any theater context. We're all wanting to discuss something about it. We wouldn't be here if we didn't love it so much. And not everyone, I guarantee, I know for a fact, every actor, director has at least 3.5 hours of some of the best stories you will ever hear in your life. Just some of the best.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna let you guys take off. If you need anything, I put my email on there. Um if you need anything, let me know and just reach out and thank you guys and I appreciate it. And Harrison, if you need anything, let me know.